Hi and welcome to today's live. I've been waiting for this live as well because it's one of the most discussed and awaited topics. So, just like I do every single week, even this week, I had run a poll asking people whether they would like me to address one of the two topics, and the topic that every one of you chose was why do I not work with children? So as people join in, I ask one of you or all of you, just put a hi or a hello if you could. That would help me know that all of you are listening to me and my voice is audible and there is no background noise and everything is perfect, right? So yes, if you could just drop in a hi or a hello, whatever you feel like. So a formal welcome to each one of you coming to this live, and today we are going to talk about one of my most favorite topics. I get a call every single week, a couple of calls every single week, and hi says the scented box. And these are calls by worried mothers. Sometimes these are calls by worried fathers. Basically, parents who want me to work with their children, and my response to them is, well, I don't work with children, but I'm willing to work with you. You are the parent, you have made the call, let's work with you. And most of them say, but then I don't have an issue. I don't think the problem is with me, it's my child who is throwing tantrums, it's my child who is being scolded at the school because he or she does not behave well. It's my child who is going through ADHD. It's my child who continues to have this eating disorder. It's my child who does not behave well at home. And I say that you still need to come and work with me. And we don't have to work with the child because the work has to begin with you. I may meet the child later on, but then the work has to begin with you. And most of these people are not willing to work, which is an indication towards the fact that all of these parents also do not want to see something that is there in their life, that could be a part of their childhood, that could be a part of their family. When we look at children, I always give the example of children as equal to the example of symptoms to a disease. So in systemic work, in trauma-oriented work, when we look at symptoms, if you have a cough, if you have a sore throat, if you have a pain in your belly, right? If you have an inflammation, if you have an itching, all these symptoms that points towards a disease, we don't look at symptoms as isolated islands existing in the body and the landscape of the being. When we look at symptoms, we look at symptoms as gateways. What are the symptoms trying to tell us? Why is it appearing in that part of the body? Why are these symptoms appearing at this point of the person's life? So symptoms are gateways, symptoms are doorways, symptoms are portals that allows us to move through the symptoms, go into the body and get an impression and get an idea, when did the disease begin? What did the body go through to have this disease in the body? What trauma happened in the childhood or in the family line that is represented and reflected by the symptoms that are present in the body today? Similarly, when we look at children, when we are looking at children, then children are basically the symptoms of the family. Everything the child brings out, whether the child brings out aggression, whether they don't behave well, whether they throw tantrums, whether they numb out and shut down, whether they become bullies, whether they shout and scream, all these are symptoms that belong to the parents, that belong to the family system. When you look at children, children are basically warning flashlights, right? Children are basically warning flashlights of what is going wrong in the family, of what remains unaddressed in the family, of what remains unresolved between the parents, what remains hidden, what remains secret, what remains unexpressed, what remains unacknowledged within the parents or in the family. Children and their behavior and their symptoms, everything that they bring out, all the diseases and problems that they go through are basically warning lights showing you that, hey, here is the problem, here is the issue. Look at me, because by looking at me, I become the mirror. I become the mirror at which you will look, and you will know what is the problem in the family, what is the problem between these two parents, these two people. So children are warning flashlights. Children are warning flashlights that show both the parents what is unresolved and unacknowledged and unseen and unnoticed within the parents and their families. Why do these children do that? Why does it happen? What's the reason? Because the primary nature of children is to belong, right? Children belong. They come from you, they come from the mother, they come from the father. So their primary nature is to feel belong to the family. Let me tell you this, that when a child is born, then the child's entire body and nervous system is controlled and regulated by the mother's nervous system. Now, scientifically, it's proven that mother and her heart has an electromagnetic field which regulates and controls the child's body. So when the mother goes away, the child feels anxious and agitated, and when the mother comes, the child is able to feel safe and harmonious and is able to feel belonged, right? What I'm trying to say is that a child has not individuated from the parents. The child hasn't had an individual identity by moving out of the parents' sphere of influence. It happens much later, actually. It happens post-20s, that a young man or a young woman is able to move out of this sphere of influence of the mother and father and is able to establish a life for themselves. But then the entanglement with the mother and the entanglement with the father always remains. A child does not exist by its individuality. A child exists as a collective of the mother's experiences and of the father's experiences. So whatever is unresolved, whatever is the source of trauma, whatever is unaddressed in the lives of the mother and father, the child takes on to it. The child absorbs it. And the child does it out of love. Because the child's natural tendency is to love, right? A child doesn't know anything else in the very beginning. All other emotions like shame, or let's say disgust, or maybe guilt, or maybe lust, frustration, are a result of development in that particular family. So it absorbs from the family, but majorly and unconsciously, a child's natural tendency is to feel belong to the family and to feel love. So the child takes on all these experiences, absorbs the energy of the parents, the unresolved traumas, the unaddressed conflicts, the unseen behavior patterns, the traits and attitudes that the parents have not recognized or may have shut down. The child absorbs it all. So when a child is brought to therapy, instead of working with the child, I choose to work with the parents. Because if the traumas and the conflicts of the parents can travel down and percolate and find space in the child, then the healing that happens within the parents can also pass down and have a positive impact on the child, right? In the last, I think 5 years, I have had, numerous people calling me about their child who suffers from ADHD, right? And right now, as I speak, I'm sure a lot of you will be able to resonate. Um, Either you are therapist or you are parents, or maybe you know children who go through ADHD. So there has been a persistent rise in ADHD cases, attention deficit hyperactive disorder, right? And I look at the entire collective population and I wonder, what makes children, what is this new surge of ADHD? And people are thronging into the offices of psychiatrists and doctors and feeding their children with medication and anti-anxiety tablets and Ritalin already. And I wonder that what is there in this whole collective environment that is leading to children behaving with attention deficit and hyperactive disorder. Well, when I look into the collective atmosphere, environment, and population, I see that most of these people who are parents are probably shut down and numbed out from their own experiences. Please hear me out. When a child throws tantrum, right? When a child throws tantrum is this energy of, this hyper energy, right? Trying to push out something, trying to throw away something. That's tantrum, right? So when a child is throwing all that tantrum, the child is trying to push out an energy which is overbearing and overwhelming on this child. If you look at all of your lives, if you look at the current generation, current population's life who are becoming new parents, how do they deal with their pain? How do they deal with their anxiety? How do they deal with their trauma? How do they deal with their grief? All of these people simply numb it out. They shut it down. They disconnect. We live in a disconnected, dissociated society as of today. Despite what we went through all in the pandemic, we know that as of today, we live in a society that is utterly disassociated and disconnected. We do not have processes, we do not have tools, we do not have families, we do not have friends, we do not have neighbors, we do not have groups of people with whom we can discuss our pain, with whom we can process our grief, with whom we can, barge out our, bring out our irritation, as a result of which the entire population is a numbed out population. As a population, we have learned to deal with our grief and trauma and anger and frustration with our parents and people in our family by simply shutting all that down. Where do you think all that energy is going to go? Where do you think all that energy that you have shut down, numbed out, not felt, not acknowledged, not made peace with, where is that going to go? That's going to go in your child. That's why your child is showing all the ADHD symptoms. That's why they are attention deficit. That's where the hyperactivity comes from, because you did not allow yourself to feel. You numbed out. You did not cater to the pain. You did not process your grief. You did not cater to your emotions. You could not resolve it with your own parents. And that's why all that energy is being absorbed by the child, and the child is the mirror who is showing you, see, this is your pain. See, this is your grief. See, this is how you must have gone through. You wanted to throw out all that. You wanted to throw tantrums, and now I'm showing it to you. That's how a child shows what is unresolved in the family system. I think it's last year when I was working with a small boy who had a lot of aggression. And this boy turns 12, and his mother calls me that my son is going through a lot of aggression, will you work with me? Well, I did speak to him, but as I spoke to him, I saw that the level of aggression that is there in the child, the kind of shutting down that he goes through, the kind of pushing and rejection he wants to push ahead, I felt that the energy was not his. I felt that as if this is a small boy of 12, taking on the feelings of someone else from the family. So, so I asked the mother that, is there something that you want to tell me that you haven't told anyone else? Is there something you are angry about? And initially she declined, she did not tell me. But then after a few minutes of discussion, when I kept on probing, and she said that before this child was born, my husband asked me to abort the 3 previous children. And while I did for my husband, I could never express to him how wronged I felt, how victimized I felt. I could never express to him my anger. And so we know now, where does the anger come from? Where does the aggression in the child comes from? It's all the unfelt, unvoiced aggression of the mother that she rightfully could have or should have projected on the husband and expressed that how she felt. But then because that remains unexpressed in the system, the child takes it all, right? So that's how a child takes and absorbs. I had another case of this beautiful 18-year-old girl who suffered from emotional eating. So she turns 14. At the age of 14. She starts, gobbling up food and gaining weight and uncontrollably eating. And she's aware of that. She's a very intelligent child. And she is brought to therapy at the age of 18. But the problem starts at 14. And she feels that, she has no control over this entire movement. She feels that there is a huge void of sadness and she needs to fill that up with food. And this happens at the age of 14, right? So again, the mother comes and I choose to work with the mother, and I ask the mother, what happened to you when you were 14 years of age? Because the child develops it at 14. So I'm asking the mother, what happened to you when you were 14 years of age? And she said, that's the age I lose my mother. And I asked her that, how did you process it? And she said that, well, I was the eldest, and I had 3 more sisters, so I had to take care of all of them. So there was no time to cry and grieve or to process or to talk about it, because, well, if I don't take care of my sisters, then who's going to take care of them? And that's what happens when children become independent as a result of one of their parents' death. They are not able to process their grief. They are not able to process their anger. They are not able to process their pain. And the reaction to that trauma does not stop there. It doesn't end with not processing. It's going to travel down. So when this woman who lost her mother at 14 and could not process the grief, right? Who could not process her own void. The loss of one's mother at the age of 14 is a huge void, by the way. I'm sure you know it. So when her daughter turns 14, she starts filling up that void, right? This is also an indication towards cases which point towards addiction. And people might be filling up their void, and the void may not even belong to them. The void may belong to one of their parents. So similarly, I had another case of this boy who turns 15 and who is 15 years of age, and who is brought to therapy, but then he develops this tendency of cutting himself at several parts of his body at a very, very young age. Self-mutilation is a huge problem in many therapeutic setups. I mean, in our society, we have a lot of children who are self-mutilating themselves and they are cutting themselves. So he used to cut himself with a blade. And then when we look into the case, well, the case was really, really detailed. When we look into the case, then we get to know that the father at a very young age was sent away from his parents to live in a boarding, while his brothers stayed back with the parents. So it's a lot of unfairness that the father goes through, and he is so angry, he feels so pained, he feels so abandoned, he feels so rejected by his parents because they send him for boarding, and that is never talked about because it's a sore area for the father. Instead, the son who cuts himself says that when I cut myself, at least this pain is better than the pain I go inside. I don't even know why I feel so much of pain, but when I cut myself, at least this pain that I go through by cutting is better than the immense pain I go inside, and that pain belongs to the father. So when we work with the father, when we worked with the anger that the father could never express to his family, when we worked with the abandonment, loneliness and isolation that he felt at a very young age, that's when the boy stopped cutting himself. And this is how children repeat patterns, repeat unrealized and unconscious behaviors, attitudes, traits, feelings, and unresolved traumas that are from the lives of the parent. If your child lies, if your child cheats, if your child betrays, then it is possible that you are maybe you are hiding something from your spouse. Maybe you want to not tell your spouse something intimate about your own life, and the child is simply reflecting the fact that, well, you don't want to talk about it, so I'm going to do like you. I'm going to lie about my intimate details. When a child cheats and betrays, maybe you are scared that your spouse might cheat or betray, or maybe you had a father who cheated and betrayed and whom you could not ever forgive or experience or absorb and take him fully. And a child is simply trying to say that mom or dad, mom or dad, whoever you are thinking about, that is not the only bad guy. I can also do the same, so that you can look at me and realize that you need to address what remains unaddressed. So for example, if let's say a mom who doubts her husband about cheating, or she has a father who cheated on her mother and she could never forgive as a daughter, so the child is probably trying to show that mom, I know that you are scared of dad doing this, but he's not the only bad person there. I am also doing the same. Or I know your father, meaning my grandfather, did this to his wife. He's not the only bad person. I am also doing the same, so that you can look at me and make peace, resolve, address your conflict with your husband, with your father, whoever it is, right? So there is something unresolved in your system that you need to address before you bring the child to therapy. The child truly does not need to be healed. The child truly does not need to be fixed. The child is simply a representation, is a symptom, is a flashlight who is trying to show you that these are the various dysfunctionalities in the family. These are the various dysfunctionalities between you, mom and dad. And I, out of my love for you and the family I belong to, I'm absorbing all of it and I'm reliving it so that you can have an opportunity to look at me, identify your traumas, and address and heal them. So your child is basically your teacher. Your child is basically your mirror who is trying to show you what remains unresolved, either within you and your spouse or between you and your family systems. Many times when couples go through divorces, the child has to make a choice between one of the parent, and the child not only has to stay back with that parent, but the child also has to carry a lens provided by the parent that they stay with and reject the other parent because this parent with whom the child stays does not like the other parent, right? It's a lot for the child to carry, please understand. Because the child comes from both, 50% of DNA from the mother, 50% of DNA from the father. So if you provide the child a lens to reject the other parent, even if you do not like your spouse, this child will grow up and recreate everything that you reject in the other parent. It is a way of the child to tell you that you reject this parent of mine. Now I'm going to absorb everything that you reject so that I can feel belonged to him, I can feel belonged to her. So let's say a boy child who stays with dad, and dad rejects his wife and doesn't like his wife, and that's the lens he also gives to his child, that mom is not good, she's not worthy, well, she abandoned us, and then she ran away with someone. Well, this child who will eventually grow up will take up all those qualities that you rejected your wife for and will recreate it in the system by, and it's a way of telling dad that, dad, mom is not the only bad person here. I am going to integrate and absorb all of that because I also belong to mom, not just to you. So I'm going to absorb all those things that you dislike in mom. And as a result, I become a cheater, I become a betrayer, I become the one who isolates and abandons, I become the one who leaves my family. Would you want your child to go through that when he or she or they grow up? Would you truly want them to do that? Would you want them to go through the same pains that you went through? Well, no. And in that case, be careful of the lens that you give about your other spouse to the child, right? So even if you don't like the other spouse, you have to tell the child what you once liked in your other spouse, what you once admired in the other spouse, what you once found positive in your spouse. Today you may not find anything positive because, well, you have gone through a sour phase and you have separated, but there was a time when you believed in that love, right? There was a time when you found something positive. Tell the child about those positive things. Do not hide from the child. Tell the child about those positive things. Tell them that you have the permission to be like your father. You have the permission to be like your mother. When I first met your father, it was so wonderful. He was such a kind man, and he had compassion. Tell this child about the positive qualities about your spouse, even if you do not like them. Because if you don't do it, then at the end of the day, you are simply subjecting and preparing your child for disaster, right? And many of you may not want to do that because you don't like the other one. But remember, the child will have divided loyalties, and the child is going to recreate all the experiences of the other spouse that you have rejected. So that's what is, well, divorce and separation is a complex topic, and I don't want to go there a lot, but then I can give you this in a nutshell. And if you are someone who is struggling with your child's issues, attitudes, behaviors, traits, or problems or symptoms, then it is you who has to do the work, not your child. And to do the work, you may all know that on 23rd, 24th, and 25th October, we have an offline family constellation via somatic awareness event happening, healing event happening in Delhi. So all you can do is you can go to the link in my bio and you can register directly, or you can also DM me and I'll send you the link, right? And I welcome all of you. I'm sure all of you as parents, if you are all parents, you may be going through one or the other issue with your child, and this can be a brilliant opportunity for all of you to stop putting it on the child, stop blaming it on the child, and begin to look inwards into your own life and see what remains unresolved between you and your spouse, what remains unresolved in your childhood, what remains unresolved between you and your family and intergenerational line. It is high time. So go to the link in my bio to register for the event, Family Constellation via Somatic Awareness, or DM me to know more about the event and I will send you the details. Okay, so I'm going to look through questions or comments that might be there. So if you have questions, please feel free to type them out so that I can read them and address them. Oh, okay. How does it work for a single parent, a single mother or single father? It works the same for a single father or single mother. As I said, that as a single parent, we may not be able to feel good about our spouse, and that could be our individual business with our spouse. This business that I have with my spouse, whom I may not be able to have a congenial relationship, cannot go to the child. The child is independent of this business, and the child must be provided no matter what, no matter what. Even if the husband is a criminal, no matter what, the child has to be provided with a positive lens of this person, who could be the father, who could be the mother, whoever is rejected. Because otherwise the child is going to absorb all that and recreate it in his or her life later. So it's better we give them a positive picture, something that we once found positive in this person, something we once loved in this person. Today we don't, but once we did. You have to give them that. Okay? Okay. Does that mean if anyone needs to claim down kids, working upon the parent will suffice? Resolving issues of the parents will resolve issues with the child? Yes. The claim belongs, calm down kids. Sorry, I read it wrongly. Sorry. Does that mean if anyone needs to calm down kids? Yes. If the child is someone who needs to be calmed down, the child doesn't need to be calmed down. You need to calm down, and what remains unresolved in you, maybe you are calm because you are shut down, you are numbed out. That's the reason probably you are calm. And probably when the child is not calm, all the anxiety of the child reminds you of the numbness that you have put through, you have put yourself into, because you don't want to deal with something. So the work has to happen with you, not with the child. Never. Okay, right. I just love listening to you every Monday. Thank you so much. So informative. Thank you for this. Thank you so much. This is brilliant. Workshop sounds promising. Thank you. Okay, if we have traumas related with husband and born after the separation, then our work with our husband and eventually why we had that husband in our life, which points towards the fact that we have something unresolved in our family line, as a result of which the husband is the reflection. Basically, we have to work on that. The work is not on the child. The child deserves to have this as the father, no matter what relationship you have with your husband. Again, if you fall out of love in the marriage and if one plans separation, will it affect child? Of course, I have already talked about it. So this talk is going to be also recorded and put up in IGTV video. You must go through and listen to it once again to have total clarity. Okay, if one is not in Delhi area and cannot make to the workshop, are there options to do one-on-one individual sessions? So I'm not doing individual sessions as of now. So we do have a family constellation online program coming up from next February 2022, and I will be talking more about it from my next live onwards. So you must stay tuned so that you get to know when the training is happening, how to register for it, what is it all about, everything, the logistics, right? So thank you so much. Thanks a lot. I'm going to put this up on IGTV so that you can go back and you can watch it. Thank you once again. Bye-bye.